Well, we would like to just bring it up there a little bit there, Barney, please. We'd like to salute the visiting professor from Bennington College, Vermont, who was teaching economics at a school out west. He walked in there and he looked down at the class and he says, "You people have won, class. I am going to sell grades. Grades will go to the highest bidder." And he began to have an auction. He sold A's for $85. B's went about 60, and a C was worth $35 to $40. And you like that? Well, of course, later on, to kind of kill the gag, later on, 6 or 8 weeks later, all the crowd, they just, what happened, of course, was that everybody in the class then, when they bought their grades, proceeded to not take notes in class anymore. They burnt their term papers and everything and so on. Then the week before it was over, he told them all it was all just a hoax. He was mad. He was mad because all these kids liked the free enterprise system. Well, I don't think bribery has much to do with the free enterprise system. What kind of an economics professor is this ding dong? But nevertheless, he says he wanted to show how corrupt the free enterprise system was. Well, what are you going to do? The guy comes in and says, "We're selling this. You want to buy it?" That doesn't say much about the system. It says a lot about his morality. What it really says. Speaking of great moments like that, have you ever? I just wonder. I'm just curious. We're going to bring up a supposition here. I've done some teaching. In fact, I taught 1 year at NYU, and got a little experience in that curious, somehow incestuous world. It's a fascinating world, and I just wonder if anybody has ever, and I've never heard of it. It probably must have happened. It would have had to have happened. Were there any professor who was teaching a crucial course, crucial to somebody's grades, somebody's eventual graduation or granting of a degree or something, somebody who's teaching an essential course, like say if you were teaching in a medical school, right, and you were teaching, say, something as basic as anatomy, and some guy, had to get a grade. He just absolutely had to get this grade, or forget it. If he failed it, out he goes. Going to be working in a drugstore from that day on, opening Coke bottles, and that's about it. Now, I wonder whether at any point anybody ever tried to and successfully bribed a teacher for a grade. It's a good question, isn't it? You never thought about that, but it's a good question. There was a big case. Well, this has happened in some very curious areas. Guys needing something very badly. And I wonder if anybody, some kid is going to the schools and he's having trouble with, we'll say, for argument's sake, organic chemistry. He's got to get this grade, or else it's all over in the pre-med. He's that kind of thing. So he's really having trouble. He's banging his head against the wall. He's having trouble with the carbon compounds and all the rest of it. See, and he goes home and tells his old man. And it turns out his old man is one of the local godfathers. And 10 minutes later, the phone rings at Professor Oschenschlager's house, and his voice comes out about,
"Hey, Oschenschlager, you got a kid named Clarence. He's taking his chemistry, right? Well, he better get an A. You hear that? He better get that A. You understand? I'll tell you what, if you don't understand, we'll give you a little demonstration tomorrow night, right? I think you read me."
well, you like the way I delivered that? Isn't that kind of nice, almost dramatic moment? Amazing how Professor Oschenschlager all of a sudden. I'll tell you what happened with me one time. You want to hear about this? I was taking a course, and this was in high school. I was in physics. And physics, of course, you got to do a lot of homework in it. So it's not one of these things you can ad lib your way through. You either know about moments of inertia or you don't. It's as simple as that. And we used to have all these questions. the problems that we were given. We were given problems in pulleys and torque and weights and all that jazz. And it was really it wasn't that I couldn't understand it, which I could. There was no problem there. But what the problem was, I was also playing on a football team, and we would start practice about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would do PT till about 4:30 or 5, and then we would have scrimmages until about 6. And I'd come dragging home. I'd get home about 7 o'clock at night, you know. And I'll tell you, it was really a drag. So this went on 7 days a week, this practice. And plus the fact I was carrying all the other courses, the usual stuff, English, history, and so on. Well, one day it was a wild thing, and I was not, I couldn't get all the homework done. It was just a matter of time. I was so tired most of the time that I couldn't sit there for 3 hours and do problems in torque and so on, and inertia. Well, I was flailing around there, and I was getting very sketchy with the homework, you know. And I'd hand in out of 5 problems, I'd hand in 2, and then I would get back to paper with a big question mark, red in red crayon, big question mark, and it'd say what happened to problem 5, 9, and 14, you know, that kind of stuff. D. Wow. So. I was sitting in class one day, and this professor, this doctor, he was a doctor. He taught also in the local university, and he was doing this high school thing. So anyway, we sitting up there, and he's sitting at his desk, and he's asking questions. And this time we were on the principles of alternating current. You recall those problems you had in alternating current? Uh, Phase shift relationships and little thingies like that. So he says he's now this class we're going to I'm going to do a little oral discussion here now today, and I'd like to ask members of the class. He says, and if you're not going to volunteer, he says, I'm going to just point to you, and he said, I want you to answer the questions that I gave you. Right? He says this will actually be graded as an oral examination today. As you've all read the course, the chapter on alternating current in a textbook, and the basic principles of electricity and generation and all that. So, anybody hasn't read it? A hand goes up. Well, I knew at least one guy in the class that hadn't read it, and so. But let me tell you what happened. just as a sidelight. See, it was one of the chapters I didn't have to read because of what happened. He said, all right, he said, now, class, he said, can any of you here tell me what happens when an alternating current is increased in frequency and you begin to get an increase in frequency and you get problems which we call a standing wave problem? Can any of you give me a definition of that? Instantly, my hand goes up, see, and I start telling them about standing wave ratios and UHF and various other. He's dumbfounded. He sits back and he said, I said, well, Mr. Shepard, he said, that's very interesting. I said, you know, you went well beyond the textbook in that. Did you read this text? Well, there are times when you actually tell the truth, and there are other times you don't. And this was one of those times. I don't know. I just felt the urge. Well, I better tell the truth. My instinct was right for once. Shepard is known for never having right instincts. And so I said, well, Mr. Matson, to be honest with you, no, I didn't read that. He said, oh, all right. He says, now, well, wait a minute. He says, now let's get this straight. You didn't read the text. You did not read the chapter on alternating current transmission. You did not read any of this, and yet you're here telling me about Kirchhoff's law, which is not mentioned until the second semester of this very course? I said, well, I'll tell you, honestly, Mr. Matson, I know about that sort of thing. He said, well, now, how do you know? Oh, well, class, we have an expert with us. You know about that sort of thing, right? Well, class. We'll just see how well Mr. Shepard knows about this sort of thing. Do you have any concept at all of how radio frequency currents are generated? Well, yes, of course I do, Mr. Matson. Now, take, for example, the tritet oscillator. We can discuss the Hartley oscillator. Here, and I says, may I use the blackboard for a moment? I'll give you a diagram of a very interesting Hartley oscillator, and I'll explain to you on how the generation of RF voltages, actually RF current, is produced using a Hartley, a tritet. And then so I go up to the board and I'm doing all this stuff. I got the Hartley oscillator, then I do the tritet oscillator, then I do a crystal control oscillator, then I do a double buffer stage. I'm carried away. And at that point, he's dumbfounded. Obviously the class is flipping out too. Old dumb Shepherd back there has all of a sudden exploded, an atomic bomb explosion of total knowledge. And Mr. Matson says, well, I don't like to be, disrespectful, Mr. Shepherd. But where did you learn all this? I said, well, Mr. Matson, my call is W9 Quebec, Washington, Nevada on W9 QWM. I have a first phone, and his face changed. He actually shrunk. He shrank down into his seat. He says, oh, he said, for heaven's sakes. You mean, what band do you work? And I said, well, I'm on. Work a little CW down on the high end, low end of 20. I work a little 40 meters CW, and I'm on the 20 phone now and again. And he said, I'd like to talk to you about this after class. You don't mind, Mr. Shepherd? I said, no, certainly. And so the bell rings about 20 minutes later, and I was not called on again, obviously. And I walk up to the desk, and Mr. Matson says, oh, he said, you really are. You're 79 kid of one. I says, well, indeed. All day. He said, do you have a first phone? I said, yes, I do. Matter of fact. He said, oh, come on. I said, well, yes, of course. So I whip out my wallet. I had this wallet that had Joe DiMaggio's picture in it and other goodies of the time. And in it was a photocopy of both my first class phone and my Class A hand ticket, and I showed it to him. He sat there for a minute, dead silence, reading these very official federal documents, which attested to plenty. And he said, he said, I had no idea. He said, why didn't you tell me this before? That's what the subject never came up. We were always talking about ropes and pulleys. But, it just never came up. I said, I'm not that interested in ropes and pulleys. And I said, but you come along and you tell me you'd like to know something about a half-wave rectifier or a selenium rectifier. Now you're in my ballpark. At that point, the whole relationship changed. He says, he said, I've never been able to learn the code. For 4 years, I've been trying to get a ham ticket. Mr. Matson, there's certain things you must know about learning the code. I said, I have a 45 word per minute certificate from the ARRL, and I can give you a little help in the code. I think you're probably approaching it entirely wrong. You're probably approaching it from what we call the digital error, which is a very difficult problem. I said, I'll give you a few little exercises to do. And so I gave him a few exercises on how to learn the code, see. And he was sitting at his desk when I left, just kind of a stunned look on his face. And they says, gee, it's very nice of you to help me like that. And I said, don't worry about it, Mr. Matson, anytime. And if you're having trouble with the Q&A, if you run into any problems about antenna line theory or antenna transmission theory, open wire feeders, you just come around. I'll help you. I had a little experience on that. I said, let me tell you the time I had this half-wave Zep on 75, and I was feeding it with a 6. You just see his whole face. He changed. From that day on, I did not hand in a single piece of homework. I got an A+ on the course. And I hate to tell you, kids, I deserved it. But I don't know whether he ever got his ticket. I've often wondered whether Matson ever got his ticket because I went on, and he left the school and went somewhere else. Now I wonder whether he ever got that license. But these are the things that you that you deal with. Now, you never know. You see a person all your life, and you think you know them, and you don't know. And anytime now I look at somebody, I look at them with a little different way. That are surrounding this guy. There's another guy. There's a shadowy image of a man he once tried to be, or there's a tangled knot of indescribable interpersonal relationships that exist above his head, like a rusty Brillo pad filled with trauma. Yeah, I don't think I should tell you the story because it's somewhat disturbing. Well, I don't know. Because somebody out there may put two and two together, and then the roof would fall in. I better not tell you this. Now, all right, I will. After all, it's the function of the artist to plunge forward ahead totally without any sense of personal danger. You just go out and lay it out, right? Well, okay. You never know about people. And you heard this cliche many times. And you tend to dismiss a cliche. You stay right here, Bob, because I'm going to talk about something in 1 minute. You've got to hear this. I said that around every person in your life, there exists a tangled web of indescribably private and usually fantastically surprising personal interrelationships, right? Like a rusty Brillo pad. Well, a couple of years before I came to this nest of thieves here on Broadway, I was working in a television station, the TV show. And it was this friend of mine, and I'd known him intimately for 2 years. In fact, he was directing the show. You know, you get to know a guy very, very much. We work together all day long. We're doing the show, see. And one day, after we finished taping the show, he looked me right in the eye, which is something he didn't always do. He looked me right in the eye, and he said, "Shep?" I said, "Yes, Fred." And it's not the Fred you think. It's another Fred. But, oh, you're nice. Of course. If there's anything that is groovier for your ego than being asked for advice, I'd like to know it. Anytime anybody asks you for advice, you feel expanded. Why, of course, I'd be delighted to give you advice. He said, no. He said, I don't want to talk around here. He said, I just want to ask you advice on something. It's really bugging me. I don't know what to do. Well, I figured it's the typical problem. Should I buy the Chevy or should I buy the Ford? What am I going to do about that damn sales department? They're on my back again. That kind of stuff. So I said, well, let's go downstairs to the B&G. This place called the Bottomless Cup, They'll give you a bottomless cup of coffee. And they had the buttermilk pancakes, the thing. So we go down to the B&G, and I'm sitting at the counter. There's nobody else around. It's middle of the afternoon. Little did I realize that I'm about to have a bomb laid upon me, which to this night, I often wake up at 3 a.m, and I see this guy's face on the ceiling. He says, this is confidential. Right? But you know me very well. We fought together. We put this show together. For 2 years we fought. So I'm not going to say anything. Have I ever spilled anything? You just lay it out. Guarantee I'll never mention. I got a real problem. What is it? Well, I don't know how to say it. Well, why don't you just say it? Why don't you just blab it out like my foot's falling off? Why don't you just come out and lay it out? So I wish it was as simple as that. What falling off? That would be easy to take care of. Go down and get a wooden leg. This is a problem. Well, come on, buddy. Look, come on. You want to talk to me? We're sitting here, and I've got a show. We're going to have to go to work again in another 20 minutes. I can't sit all day long here drinking this coffee. Now, just say it. Just say it. I'll try to help you. I'll try to help you. Because of my vast knowledge of human problems, I can help you, of course. Okay. And he looked around to make sure nobody was listening. The girl behind the counter was all the way by the cash register. Looked around again. He said, oh, boy, don't, for God's sakes, mention this to anyone. I'm really up against it. Go ahead, what is it? I have got 2 wives. What? I dropped my cup. I said, you got what? I've got 2 wives. I'm married to 2 women. You mean to tell me I've known you for 2 years and you've got 2 wives? When do we see this Louise? Oh, I did dinner with you, Louise. I said, yes, but you want to know about Gladys. Where's Gladys? That's the other one I'm married to. She lives in Chicago. You're married to a lady in Chicago named Gladys and a lady named Louise living in Cincinnati? Well, when do you see me? You live here in Cincinnati. Gladys doesn't know about Louise, and Louise doesn't know about Gladys. Well, how the hell did this happen? It's what I'll tell you. Well, I'm embarrassed. Well, it must be. What happened? Well, you know, when I was in school, I married Louise, right? He said, I thought we was happy. We made it. We had a couple of kids right away. Everything was fine. Do you remember that NAB conference they had 3 years ago in Chicago? How's the NAB conference got to do with this? It's well, a lot to do with it. Said I was sent to the NAB. And I go up to the conference. I'm living in the Stevens Hotel up there. I was there for a full week, right? And I said, yeah. He said, oh my God. I met this girl. Oh, unbelievable. She was famous. Came in from St. Louis. Her name was Gladys. And I want to tell you, she just blew my mind. I couldn't help it. My eyeballs were sweating every time she walked by. I said, but wait a minute, Fred. It's me, the girl, and he said, I couldn't stand it. And she had nothing to do with me. So, you could have taken a hint. No, you don't know her. She's fantastic. She's so fantastic. I couldn't get her out of my mind for 3 days. I walked them out. And one night, I had dinner with her at the Sherman Hotel. He said, I don't know what made me do it. I said, what did you do? What'd you do? He said, we're sitting there eating. And I'm looking at her. He said, I wanted to get that girl up to my room the worst way. But he would have none of it. He didn't know I was married. All of a sudden, I said to her, when they're bringing the oysters Rockefeller, I said to her, Gladys, will you marry me? She said, yes. We went to Whiting, Indiana. I took this rented postcard. We went up to Whiting, Indiana, and we got married. So I don't know what happened. Why I did it. I did it. That's what. Why did you do that? So what do you think we did? We went back to the hotel. Then what? At the end of the week, I told her that I had to go back. I told her I was going to school at the University of Cincinnati. And she had just gotten this job at this television station in Chicago. I told her that I had to go back to school. And I went back to Cincinnati with Louise. That's 2 years later now. I said, I don't know what to call it. You got a wife in Chicago. You got a wife in Cincinnati. I don't know what to tell. Really, all I got to say, one thing, is if you ever hear of Gladys buying a ticket on a Greyhound bus to come to Cincinnati, you better do something quick. That's what's happening. He wants to come down there. I said, oh, my God, no. Just don't mention it to anyone. Tell somebody. Tell somebody. We went up the B&G back into the television station. The next night, we never mentioned it. The next day, we recorded the show. We recorded another show. And that night, I saw Louise drive up in their Chevy and pick him up, and they went away. And I knew him for another 6 months, and we never mentioned it again. Eventually, I got the word, saw the light. I left Cincinnati. I don't know what happened to Louise and Gladys, but I know he was telling the truth. I've never seen a more terrified man in my life. And usually he was an enigmatic, kind of a sullen guy. But the night that he told me that he was married to Gladys and Louise taught me a lesson which I have never forgotten. Those placid streams that flow past the dark green trees of the everlasting forest of human life have fish that none of us have ever seen, possibly ever want to see. I don't know where Gladys is tonight, nor Louise, nor Fred. By the way, these are not the real names of any three of them, as you can tell. But this is a true whole story. I really don't know. I really don't know whether or not. You see, most people don't really write about the kind of things that actually are the true scenes of their lives. Well, I'll tell you one of the scenes. You want to hear another horror story? Now, this is the kind of horror story that if I did this in a 90-minute, and I've often thought it would be really great to do a 90-minute television drama that's taken not from some kind of a fiction writer's head, but out of the real life story. One time, I'll tell you another one. You'll never know about people. And, you hear this cliche, but by George, it is not a cliche. Have you come to the conclusion that many old cliches are cliches because they're absolutely true? Absolutely true. Well, how many times have you heard people say, well, you never know? Oh, it's absolutely true. Well, one day, again, this occurred in Cincinnati. You notice I take a point which is not controversial. It occurred in Cincinnati, and this actually did happen in Cincinnati. And I was very starry-eyed, and at that point, you see, we all go through a period in our lives when life seems to be extremely simple. Yes, although our personal problems are often complex, life seems simple. It does. And that's why often the best revolutionaries are under 19. Because it seems very simple to get rid of evil. Just get rid of it. Get rid of them bad guys. And then, of course, life will be great forever. It's simple. You never think in terms of yourself turning into a bad guy. See, there is no such thing as a set character for anybody. That within every elegant minister lies the seed of a total debauchee, and within the shell of every riotous reveler there lies the kernel of an incredibly fanatical fighter of evil. Now, why? Why is nobody quite knows? What makes one surface and what makes another one disappear. But here's what taught me this, among others. This one taught me. There was a guy that worked at this television station, who was the most elegant character. He was truly elegant. There's only one or two, maybe five men in my life that I've ever known who were truly elegant. Now, I mean elegant in the Vincent Price style, or the George Sanders style. Do you remember the late George Sanders? Elegant actor. He was always saying, but my dear, that is so ridiculous. Let us just have a little wine and forget the whole nasty affair. This is, this is elegance. Well, anyway, this guy was an elegant guy, and he used to sit. He was a writer, and he wrote pieces for the Saturday Review, and he always had a piece coming out in Harper's, and he was always sitting around and making devastating remarks about society and about mankind, and he always seemed to be laughing behind his external. He was always laughing at the plight of all of us. Well, that's the way with mankind, kind of thing. And I was really fascinated. I was a kid, I was really fascinated by this guy. When And he was, incidentally, a graduate of one of the great Southern universities. And he came from a very wealthy family, of the true Southern gentry. And he had just a touch of a Southern accent, really an elegant man. And in fact, he was so elegant that the girl he was going with at all times, he referred to as Miss Anne. Now that's elegant, They'd sort of say, "Hey, how about you and me going out and have dinner with Anne?" Then they used to well, say, I said, "Miss Anne is coming into town today. Would you care to take dinner with us?" I love people that say, "Take dinner with us." That's the way Joe was, and so Miss Anne was like chiseled out of alabaster. She was an elegant girl. And she was the kind that you see staring out at you from Camay ads and Chanel number 5. She had a chiseled profile. And so, as time went on, they decided to get married. And it was a truly elegant marriage. It was the only time I've ever gone into an elegant jewelry store and ordered the silver, their pattern. You buy them a soup tureen, and they check your name off, and you order this pattern. So they had this tremendous reception with all the silverware out, and Miss Anne was married as only a true Southern belle can be married. And there were elderly colonels standing around, and this was all done in northern Kentucky, where the gentry really lives, and it was in the horse country outside of Lexington, as a matter of fact. And one of the men had owned, his uncle had owned a Kentucky Derby winner, and he was there. Oh, wow. But then 2 years went by. And in the second year, late in the second year, I was back out in Cincinnati on business. And I'm sitting in a bar with a friend of mine. We're having a drink at a table. And all of a sudden, his face changed. He said, "Don't turn around, don't turn around." I said, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" He said, "Don't turn around." I said, "What's there?" He said, "I'll tell you later." Well, of course, you got to look. I turn around. So I turn around, see, and I see standing by the door this. Well, the only way I can describe him is he was the total Bowery bum. He looked like an old, weazened man covered with stubble and a torn shirt, and just a rotten-looking bum. And the bartender is throwing him out, pushing him out the door, see? And I said, "Who was that, Bob?" He said, "I'll never guess. That's Joe." I said, "Joe? Joe who?" I never put the two together. It's Joe. You remember the guy that used to write at the station? Who married Miss Anne? Joe. You mean the Joe? George Sanders? Vincent Price? Oh, my God, he's unbelievable. He says, "You know that he's on the Bowery in New York? He's on the Bowery. And he bums his way back and forth across the country. And once in a while, when he comes into Cincinnati, he always comes into the bar here where all of us," this was a bar, by the way, where all the radio and TV people went. He says he always comes in here and tries to get a couple of drinks, and then he drifts out. I says, "He's on the Bowery. Bowery." He says, "Oh, he's not only in the Bowery, but he comes down here. He stabbed the guy the last time he went through. He stabbed the guy right out here on 4th Street. He was in the can for 30 days. I said, "Oh, stabbed the guy. What happened?" He says, "I don't know. Nobody knows." I said, "What happened to Miss Anne?" "Well, Miss Anne went back to Lexington. All I know is she's remarried, and she never mentions it." I sat there and I drank my gin. It was the second one. Let's see. The first one just got me started. The second one was calming my nerves after having seen Joe. And I said, "Well, Bob, is there anything we can do for him? Why don't we go out and help him?" He says, "Don't get near him." He says he'll grab a hold of you and he'll start crying and he'll want money. And the next thing you know, he's going to be drunk and laying out in the street. You can't help him. We tried to help him for 6 months. Do you ever guess who he stabbed? I said, "Who?" He said he stabbed Herbie. I said, "Herbie!" Herbie was this nice, soft, jovial engineer. I said, "Oh, my God, no." So, friends, who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of man.